For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates.
This is Strat News Global. I'm Amitabh Revi. Afghanistan has reappeared in some of the headlines here in India at least, and we are joined today by a long-time entrepreneur who was in Afghanistan and an independent Afghan analyst, Samir Wasim. Sam, thanks so much for giving us time.
Thank you for having me.
A long time since we spoke on camera about this. We do speak a lot of that. But the latest round of statements, allegations, the ambassador who was appointed by the Republic of Afghanistan in India, talking about India not being supportive to his embassy staff, and he was closing it down. India very diplomatically said it's not closing. The consuls are still there, both Hyderabad and Mumbai. What's all that about?
So as we know, Ambassador Mohammed was appointed by the previous regime, and he continued after the takeover of Taliban on August 15, 2021. He continued in his position. But since he was appointed by the previous regime, like the others, I believe that he was not able to sort of get the Taliban's complete support and to get him to continue in this position. And as we know, in May of it's in the media report that another gentleman who is also appointed by the previous regime had been Taliban had communicated to our MEA for him to take over as the charge the affairs of the embassy in India. As has been reported in the media, and we are aware that the other two consulates have established contact and have got the so-called blessings of the MOFA, Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Kabul, and have not been asked. MOFA has not suggested any changes there. So they have participated in discussions, etc. So they continue to operate. The allegations say that the support is not there, which is contradictory because from the same country, the embassy says they are not supported, but then from the same country there are two more consulates which do not agree with that position, and they have not made any such complaints. And so I think it's more a case of the larger picture of the people who have left and exiled. There is that constituency of Afghanistan, unfortunately, which resists or tries to resist and is not in consonance with the current administration. So Mahmoodzai is more aligned with that, sort of that group. And blaming India, I don't want to get into. I hear about allegations of mismanagement and even mishandling of finances. So I think he's venting out anger, but I'm not aware that there is something more than that. And as far as India is concerned, Afghanistan is strategically very important. I had spent 20 years till the takeover of Taliban in Kabul. I think it's a country where India has immense goodwill. Okay, we have historical ties as people to people level, culturally, Bollywood, etc. But strategically also for India, Afghanistan is very important. And in order for India to continue, to remain engaged in Afghanistan, we've had to engage with the current dispensation. So that we don't have an option there, because if we otherwise we would remain out of Afghanistan. So I think that was a given.
I wanted you to go a little bit more deeper into that. How does India deal with Taliban or the IAE, the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan now, in terms of engaging with them, but like the rest of the world, not recognizing them?
So, see, the world is now, after the Ukraine crisis, clearly divided in two broad groupings, the East and the West. So, the US, which was the primary player in Afghanistan, did the deal with the Taliban, as we all know, which was signed by Ambassador Khalilzad on 29th February 2020, while COVID was just emerging. And the part of that deal was the desired was to also be able to establish a inclusive government. So there was a process of safe withdrawal of US troops, and also it was under discussion that the current the administration at that time, and the Taliban did not, or the IEA did not recognize, they called them the others, they did not recognize the government, but there would be some sort of a compromise, a political compromise, and they would have an intra-Afghan, which unfortunately did not happen. After when the Taliban came to power in August 15, 2021, which, as we know, was there was a lot of fighting, and then before that event, but that was more or less a walkover into Kabul. Some embassies continued to operate. Okay, India chose to exit, because of all that chaos and uncertainty, and our perceived impression of the what influence our common neighbor has over the Taliban. So that was a big risk, considered risk, which we know now where it is the reality. So India decided to move out, and and then other countries have, all like India, have what I'll call a tacit relationship. There's no recognition, but you are engaging in order to operate in Afghanistan for whatever your interests are there. You need to engage with the administration there. So every country which is, for whom Afghanistan is not only the neighborhood, but like the US does it through the Qataris, we in June of last year established a technical mission there. We have both diplomats and security personnel posted there. So I think India has taken the stand that in order to remain in Afghanistan, and as we said, that we had a huge goodwill, even if we have to help the people who are left behind, we need to engage with the Taliban. We are still honoring in terms of certain treaties which were signed in the past, including the LDC, the trade, relaxations on customs, etc. That is still being honored. Okay. So in order to operationalize these things, in terms of civil aviation, I was the Air India GSA. Air India stopped operations, but Ariana and Camair do operate flights to India. Although India is not issuing visas for reasons known to the policymakers, but that is a big issue and has been brought up many times. Because many Afghans, and it's also a problem not just for travelers or people visiting here or businesses who have businesses with Afghanistan, but there was a huge amount of patients coming to India, and even the students' issues of visas, and so that is a very contentious issue, which is is causing a lot of hardship and amongst the Afghans.
How do you see the US post the Taliban takeover after the American withdrawal? How do you see the trajectory of their engagement with the Taliban?
So US has, like Trump said, in one of his tweets that we are not into nation building, So they've gone, well, that sort of describes it. So they had increased, so post 9/11, it was as the CIA says, a find, fix and finish vision for tracking down Bin Laden, or OBL as some know him. But when US went in there, that their presence increased there in terms of getting involved in actually rebuilding our nation in terms of all its institutions and basing it on a democratic model. And in over 2 decades, US had succeeded to a large extent and raised the hopes for the people of Afghanistan. But US policy totally reversed itself and focused on its own interest of basically exiting, or as they say, wheels up out of Afghanistan, and now has drastically reduced that to engaging for very limited purposes, which are related to security, as the agreement said that no, with the IEA or the Taliban was that no, they will not allow any terrorist group to stage attacks on US or its allies. As far as I know, India is not an ally. Or on US and its allies from Afghan soil, So that was the commitment. We know what happened with Zawari. The other, which is a secret annexure in the agreement, was certain actions which because for obvious reasons describing them would let the cat out of the bag, and so it is counterproductive. So Zawari was one of them, which is part of is basically targeting Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda is usually as I understand, usually diminished its influence, but there are which were operating earlier. There are 20 odd terrorists, I call them non-state actors, operating in Afghanistan, targeting different countries in the region. So US's main concern is security. The other piece which US looks at Afghanistan is in terms of their overarching rivalry with China, is that they will not allow China to walk into Afghanistan, because Afghanistan, as we all know and has been widely reported in the public, sits on a few $1 trillion of minerals and oil and gas assets. And China has always shown keen interest. They had the Copper Anak mine, which, if you remember, I and you visited when you were there in Kabul once with Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. So, but none of those projects are, actually progressing the way they should. So there is that rivalry. So US will not allow. So putting in short, US has overall looking Afghanistan in terms of security concerns, and also blocking any major Chinese investments, because as we just to enlarge that discussion, we call that the NAFPAC region. The Americans did, right? CPEC, as we know, started in 2014 or 15, when President Xi visited Pakistan. We are seeing where CPEC is going and what they are suffering. So I think the US does not want Afghanistan, the presence and influence of China to increase. Also, that is primary. Also, the same goes for Russia. US will want that Russian influence is not increased in Afghanistan, because politically there were two basic ideologies in Afghanistan, which was communist or Sharia-based religious ideologies. So US is interested in that. As far as there has recently been a lot of meetings and movement on the private investment sector. China appointed a new ambassador, and so they have not still formally recognized, but they have in the what I'll call it, increased that without actually technically signing a recognition of the government, but have given them more legitimacy.
I mean, the Taliban
So
travels to China
yeah,
as well.
yeah. So they've increased, say, the quotient of legitimacy for the Afghan leadership. So in order to increase their influence, but the U.S. has reacted and has sent delegations of the chamber. There is an Afghan American Chamber of Commerce. In fact, they used to have participated in their meetings with India. They used to have a annual event called Passage to Prosperity in India also, pre-COVID and pre-Taliban takeover. So it was a mega event where they encouraged Indian businessmen and Afghan businessmen to investment and trade. But I think, and the same, that's a very big body based out of Washington, and so they have their chief, their head was sitting with Mullah Brother. So there is a keen interest that the US is engaging with Taliban top leadership to counter Chinese investments and encourage Western American investments into Afghanistan. And I think there, just to quickly add there, which I've been speaking to people here, India needs to re-engage on that element, because now the war is over, for a major part the conflict is over, the security incidents are negligible. Most of the areas in Afghanistan are peaceful, okay, corruption is down. So, in terms of business, besides security, it also, in the ecosystem where you operate, it is, as a businessman, I can tell you is that security, of course, is paramount, but the other is that you don't face problems. Corruption becomes a very big problem in terms of operating businesses. So that has also been very widely curtailed. As we see in the numbers, Taliban for the first time has achieved $2 billion in revenue. And as I remember, I was speaking to a friend of mine. We have this group in WhatsApp called Kabul Friends with people who were in Kabul for many years. And one of them was in the treasury. And with all the American consultants and the USAID money, which they were, doing to support the government to reach their revenue targets, they could not do it then. Taliban has achieved it now. So, and as we know, the recent reports for Afghan currency is the strongest currency in the world, compared to the US dollar. So economically, it has stabilized. It is more stable than Pakistan. And I was in Dubai recently and I was speaking to this Pashtun driver. He lives on the border in Waziristan. So he was telling me that we have identity, identity of both sides. And so it's firstly he said there's total peace, compared to the past and before, the Americans or the West left when the war was going on. And secondly, he said we go to shop in Afghanistan. It's cheaper for us to buy our provisions in Afghanistan than in Pakistan. So, this is a very interesting phenomenon that Afghanistan, as the world, of course, the social issues of minorities and women's rights are important. I'm not in no way, saying that is not important. But there are other things also which the Taliban has able to achieve. And the last thing I would mention is also the drugs issue. They have been able to curtail drugs, as we rightly read in the reports. So I think all in all, the US, again coming to the US, is limited, I think, to security and curtailing China's and Russia's presence and influence in Afghanistan.
Interesting that you were mentioning the new Chinese ambassador. You mentioned CPEC as well. And his statements, the Chinese ambassador in Kabul's statements against the Pakistani move to repatriate what they say are illegal Afghan immigrants there. Very strong words against Pakistan. So how that works is interesting. But wanted you to dwell a little bit about Pakistan, because you made an interesting statement that Afghanistan is now more stable than Pakistan, which is the TTP issue and Pakistan itself. Where do you see that fitting in with the Taliban. I mean, all along, everyone was saying that the Taliban was sponsored and nurtured and given sanctuary by the Pakistanis so that they could control them. But now we see what's happening on the Durand line as well.
So I think the fundamental fact in that is the Durand line, as you rightly said. So none of the previous regimes, and including the Taliban, accepted the Durand line. Pakistan has tried its best to fence the line to at least have a physical control of the movement, but it is still a porous line, and there are people spread on both sides, and the whole Pashtun tribes have been there, and we know the history of the Durand line, which is from the British era. So that is the one of the fundamental reasons for. Although I don't condone violence, I'm not saying in no way that they should fight it, but that is the fundamental reason that because of the actions like Zarb-e-Abs and other things, the populations there, and as we know in Pakistan, as we all talk about it, that the ISI and the Punjabis, I also happen to be one, but I'm coming originally.
Let's clarify. You happen to be a Punjabi, not ISI, right?
No.
Okay.
So means a Punjabi by origin.
Yeah.
My grandfather moved, and father also was alive, then moved to India during partition. But within Pakistan, that dynamic between the Pashtuns and Punjabis remains, and then the dynamic added to the Durand line. So organizations like TTP, and of course we know Taliban, they have their sort of, not formally, but they have their sort of sympathizers in the Taliban. So TTP is aligned, on those issues, so those ground issues. So both in terms of the actions of of the Pakistan army on that region, and then when these TTP operates, they get a lot of local support because they have local tribal ties and all. So it is, they are sort of, it is, to put it this way, it is sort of similar to what Taliban was. I think the whole thing is reversed. So earlier Taliban was seeking refuge in parts of bordering Afghanistan when they were running their campaign against the regime and the US led forces. Now that is reversed. TTP is doing that from the west back on that side, and they have local support amongst the populations on both sides. So I think that is a very big problem and that compounded with what you earlier said, with this move by the Pakistan regime to repatriate or what they call the undocumented Afghans in Pakistan. They say for everyone, but they are predominantly Afghans. That has become a very big issue of tension. And I, from what sources I have in Kabul, I have learned that this is being. It's not only the Chinese ambassador, as you rightly stated. It has come to that level because I think China is, and probably US is concerned that this may not, sort of boil over and become uncontrollable, lead to more violence and, escalate to a larger conflict. Current indications are that it can. So TTP is not, although there were a lot of attempts in the past.
Afghan-Pakistan conflict?
Yeah, along the Durand line. But as we know, TTP, there were attempts earlier by the Pakistan Army to sort of reach and compromise an agreement. TTP is what has to be understood. TTP is a very I don't know. They're trying to set up like a central command. It's like a franchise. So they have a lot of factions and divisions who are operating in different areas. So that also becomes a concern because you cannot control the actions of different factions. although I read a report that they're trying to centralize that to have more control, but that also becomes a concern because you can have sporadic action in different factions happening where you do not even there is no central control or over those actions. So it is very concerning.
I'm talking about violence now. ISKP, we haven't heard of major attacks in the recent past. ISKP seems to be the only resistance to the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan or the Taliban in Afghanistan. What is your reading of?
So, you see, firstly, you have to understand the origin of ISKP, which came from the Levant region, where and they emerged in Afghanistan when they were sort of after Abdul al-Bakr and those areas in their influence there was reduced, and they emerged in Afghanistan. Interestingly, on the eastern border in Nangarhar, around 2014-15. The information I have is that ISI was involved in logistically supporting them. I don't know who else is involved without saying much, but ISKP is renegade elements of Taliban, okay, but they have, as far as I understand, a massive funding and from whatever sources routed through the ISI primarily, which where it emerged. ISKP is although Taliban has clearly kept repeating that their campaign is limited to Afghanistan. They are not, even in case of Kashmir, they made a statement that when Article 370 was removed, they made a statement that they are not, really concerned. That is not their objective or focus. It's mostly ISKP is a phenomenon which will, in the region, be a problem for us. Within Afghanistan, they may compete for power. I don't think they are interested in being a major force to dislodge the Taliban. But at the same time, wherever they operate, Taliban will want their control. So there will be that, that sort of conflict between them in the areas they operate. But ISKP's focus is more on the bordering countries. And it is very clear, why doesn't ISKP attack Pakistan? Because they are operated by the NTTP is different, the objective is different. So I think ISKP is an issue, and it will be a problem for the Central Asian republics, for India and the region, because these fighters, even the fighters who it's always a big question mark how they landed up on the eastern side of Afghanistan, which the ex-NDS chief used to always say, Amrullah Saleh refer to this. Whereas there were a lot of Hazara fighters who had moved, fighting who were trained and recruited by Iran to fight the ISIS in this thing, who also moved back to Afghanistan. But ISKP, I think we need to keep a close watch. As you know, that there were some people before the Taliban came to power from Kerala also who were, had joined ISKP. So it's an intent. So to put it in short, these are like other terrorist groups like the ETIM, etc. are dissidents or who have come, whose focus is neighboring countries. Okay, because the another thing has to be understood, which I understood from I'm not a religious expert. The whole within this Islam, the way that theologically the Taliban follow it, they don't subscribe to the ISIS philosophy, which you call the Khorasan province. So that is a fundamental difference which we have to understand. We can't put them in the same, just because they are followers of Islam in the same, look at them in the same, sort of brush. That's a huge fundamental difference. So I don't know. But it is a huge concern. It should be for India also.
Wasim, again, thanks so much for giving us time and putting in perspective how different countries are dealing with Afghanistan.
Thank you.
And to our viewers, do send in feedback about this interview if you'd like us to touch on topics or have specific analysts or experts. Do send us your feedback on that as well. Follow our social media handles for articles that we put up on our website or interviews like this one with Samin Wasim on our YouTube channel. This is Stat News Global. I'm Amit Abreli.